and myself. I'll spotlight Sarah and myself just so that we feel like we're having a real conversation here, Sarah. There we go. Okay, Sarah, just in terms of our kind of way of working together this evening, I'd just like to extend my thanks as well for putting yourself up here in front of a room of people from around the world, especially considering you are currently undergoing your coach training. So you're not a fully fledged, confident, 100% confident coach yet. And that vulnerability is very much appreciated. So thank you for that. We've got between half an hour and 40 minutes for our mentor coaching session, which gives us a little bit of time to do a question and answer at the end. And I'm hoping that everybody on the call has had a chance to listen to the recording or look at your transcript. So thanks to you and to your client for allowing us to share this in the sort of public forum. Much appreciated. In terms of us working together, is there anything in particular that you would like from me this evening in this mentor coaching session?
Yeah, I think it would be, well, first of all, thanks for giving me this opportunity. It's brilliant. I think I'd really like to know sort of what my strengths were. Was it in what ways was the coaching session a success? And also points for development as well, what I can think about as I go into my next coaching session and what I can work on moving forward.
Brilliant. And in terms of outcomes, you've made those pretty clear. Is there anything else specifically you'd like from this conversation today?
No, not really. I think it is just that. What am I doing well? What do I need to work on? That's it, really. Yeah.
Good stuff. So, with your permission, is it okay that when I see something which I think is, an area that could be developed, that I flag that up quite directly?
Yes.
Okay.
Don't skirt around it. Just tell me.
Okay, excellent. Well, I'm happy to do that and offer a little bit of challenge, maybe, if that's okay too.
Yeah, of course.
Excellent, good stuff. Where would you like to start, Sarah?
Okay, let's start with the good stuff.
Okay. So from your yeah, no, I love that. Let's start with the positive. There are so many positives. And again, considering you're starting out on your coaching journey, there were so many strengths in this recording. So what did you feel went well?
During the session, and actually having listened back to it a few times and looked through the transcript, I felt that it was successful in that I demonstrated a good rapport with the client.
Yeah.
It's somebody I work with. We have a great working relationship. He's a lovely guy, and I hope that came through. Good rapport, positive relationship. The other thing which I noticed, it's quite easy to do with this client, is he talks a lot. So it was him talking most of the time and not me wittering away. So I thought that was positive. I felt like the session was valuable to him. There was a sense that he'd achieved something at the end. He'd achieved what we'd set out to do. And he gave me some feedback unsolicited a couple of days later. In fact, it was, yes, what day is it today? Monday. Yeah, today he came into the office and said, I've been thinking about that session quite a lot this weekend, and it was really valuable for all of these reasons. When can we have another one? So I'm like, okay, I didn't ask for that feedback. He wants to speak to me again or have another coaching conversation. So that's good. Yeah, when I was doing it, I didn't think about competencies. It was one of the first, I haven't done many coaching sessions. I was like, just go into it, see how it goes, and just become more confident with coaching rather than worry about, let's hit these competencies. I'm thinking that will come later. I just need to get confident.
So what did you feel most confident about?
I think I felt out after, like during it, I felt confident having the conversation and having this sort of positive relationship, and I could see that it was going in a good direction, a positive direction. I think definitely the sort of rapport that I had with him, yeah, I thought that was probably, I feel quite confident in that.
If we think about the coaching arc, sort of where we start and then what goes on in the middle and where it ends, even though you were not consciously thinking about that, that was really clearly demonstrated. Because one of the sometimes when we hear new coaches and their recordings, it's like, so we're so excited to get into the coaching that it's kind of like we've got our goal and then we hit the gas and off we go at high speed. And actually, you spent a little bit of time around that goal. You asked a few questions around, what do you want out of the session today, and other things around that goal. And he was able to define, by the end of the session, if I've got this kind of checklist, then I'll feel like this has been a good use of time. So, yeah, advice for new coaches like yourself is don't feel that necessity to kind of rush into the meat of the session. If you've got a really clear goal, if you've inquired around why it's important, and if you've established some kind of criteria for success, as it says in the competencies, or what they would like to get out of it, or if what will have been a good use of the time, then actually it makes the end of the session so much easier because you're able to return back to that. But also, when you get a client like this chap, like Matt, who did seem lovely, like you said, if he's going off on tangents, if you've got a really clear goal, you can then kind of bring him back to that goal and inquire if that's still the direction he wants to travel in. So you did well with that, and I don't see that so often with recordings from new coaches. So well done, Sarah. You talked about you not wittering on. For those that don't have English as a first language, not going on, blah, 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 not saying too much. The program that I use to do transcripts, and I will share it with you after this session, Sarah, I'm able to map the transcript to the competencies. But a little trick that it does is it tells me the percentage of time that people are speaking. So in that recording, Matt was speaking 75% of the time. Okay. You were speaking 24% of the time. And so if my maths is correct, that leaves 1% of the time where nobody was speaking. So that's sort of space and silence. And again, for a new coach, that's a really kind of good kind of quantity of time, split between the coach and the client. And so here's my first challenge for you, Sarah. What if you said even less?
Yeah.
Go on, Sarah.
No, carry on.
And if we've got that 1% space, which is what the program tells me we had, I wonder what might happen if there was even more of that. Because one of our skills as a coach is to hold the space, isn't it? Like be comfortable in silence and hold the space for reflection, for processing, for just thinking time sometimes. And it can be tricky because if we've got a client who is very verbal, like Matt, sometimes as a new coach, there's the danger of thinking, oh, if I leave more space, he'll just fill it.
Exactly what was happening. And I was also really conscious of the time because I said, I said like half an hour. We went on for like 49 minutes, which was fine. But I was like, if I give him much more time, he's just going to keep talking and this is never going to end. So there was a bit of that. And I was conscious, it's one of my points that I've written down for development, is I do just need to create a bit of silence and allow more thinking time. Yeah, I I was surprised it was 24%. I thought it was much lower than that, but yeah, that's interesting.
And this is one of your first recordings. So, you know, that's brilliant for one of your first recordings, because often those, you know, it's much more like a 50-50 sometimes with some coaches, because it's like it's almost like you want to do your very best. So you've got to be talking, but you don't have to be, because it's their session. So that was just something that kind of jumped out with the numbers, Sarah. You said you wanted to start with strengths. So, with your permission, may I share some of the things that I've got written down?
I'd love to hear some really good stuff.
Well, rapport is the first thing that I've got written at the top of my list. So you've clearly got, you know, a good relationship of openness and vulnerability and trust and all of those things that are really important for a coaching session to be effective. Because if you haven't got those, then, you know, it's very difficult. I thought you did really well also, knowing that you were recording this, to kind of cover those bases around, thank you, you know, thanks for letting me record it. If you're not comfortable, we'll just delete it straight away. That kind of stuff is, again, I don't often see that in recordings, especially first recordings, Sarah. So you did really well to cover that. And I've written the goal, you know, competency 3 around the goal, was strong, because you didn't just hit it and move on. And I'm going to digress slightly. I hope that's okay. Your client came to the session with multiple goals. And towards the end of the session, you said, oh, I don't want to let you go without, you know, at least touching base with goal number 3. When you reflected on that, what were your thoughts?
So he had several goals, and I think that was kind of my downfall in the session. I reflected on it and thought I should have just said, well, which one we're going to work on? What is the most important one? What are the priorities? And then have returned. I wanted to acknowledge that there were other things going on. And then towards the end have said, and what shall we do with these? You know, and given him the opportunity to perhaps say, forget them, or let's come back to them at a later stage. But I just obviously touched on all 3, which lengthened the session and maybe overcomplicated it. I don't know, but there was a lot going on there, and I think if it had just been one goal, we'd have wrapped it up in 20 minutes. But it was like there were 3 of them. So I don't know how I feel about that. I really wanted to acknowledge that I hadn't ignored what he'd been saying.
Yeah. And it's really tricky. And obviously, this is one of your first coaching sessions with this client as well. So sometimes when we meet a client, all sorts of things are thrown at us. And it's important that the client feels heard. So there is that on one hand. And on the other hand, it is the client's session, not our session. And so if it was me and I heard multiple goals like that, I would do exactly what you said you reflected upon. I would have said, what I'm hearing are A, B, and C. And there may be a D as well. Who knows? So what, and as you rightly said, like, what's most important? What's the priority for today? What's most, you know, at the forefront of your mind for this session? And then we're kind of taking something that's big and we're making it more manageable.
Yeah, I think for me as well, because this is literally one of my first sessions, I'm also hopefully, as I become experienced, will become much more used to gauging what I can get through in the time. And I thought, oh yeah, we'll whip through these in no problem. We'll get this done in half an hour, 40 minutes tops. And I ended up just rushing it. So I think, well, I hope that will come with experience.
Will definitely come with experience. So what's your biggest learning there, taking away your reflections around that sort of multiple goal situation.
It is to establish what the priority actually is for that particular session and work on that thing. Listen to the client, acknowledge all the other things that are going on, and then leave that with the client. What do they want to do with it? I think that would be my way of moving forward.
That sounds very spot on. I like it. And building on that even further, if you look at the competencies, we've got the goal for the session and we've got the goal for the engagement. So what I think I was hearing in that recording is this young man, and I'm saying young because he's obviously a lot younger than I am. This young man seemed to want to progress his career. He's ambitious. He wanted a promotion of some sort. So that might be the overriding goal for the coaching. And then we might be able to break that down into, as you did, you know, the actual letter, the actual interview preparation, you know, the research or reading he needs to do, the courses he might need to go on, those kinds of things. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Having listened, when I listened to it, that was sort of, yeah, it's going to take more than one session. A bit ambitious.
It was good to be ambitious, and it is experience. And when we build our alliance with our clients, especially when they're new clients, that conversation is really important before we even really start coaching sometimes. Or it might actually be the first coaching session that we spend on, right, what's the big goal? And then what might the smaller goals be to kind of incrementally work towards that bigger goal?
Yeah.
In an ideal world, that's kind of the coaching plan. And of course, it just depends what the client brings on the day, because the coaching session is theirs and it's their agenda.
Yeah, yeah. I agree.
If you need a moment to write anything down or you want to pause,
Got it all.
I can see that. I can see if you need me to and I need to slow down, please just say.
Oh, thank you.
Right. So strengths, we've got rapport, the alliance, goal setting, which was strong, and you know, we can further develop that. Partnering. So this was a double-edged sword. Partnering was really good. Like you said, near the beginning of the session, about 3 minutes, what do you want to get out of the session today? And then you also said a little bit later, in 6 minutes, where would you like to start? So that's, you know, great partnering there. And you did it a couple of times during the session. So well done for that. Competency 6, active listening, masses of stuff on that. I loved the way you were able to utilize the client's language, this idea of the cloudy mind, and you noted that he'd come back to that a few times. Your summary skills as well, you were obviously fully present, completely listening. You were there for that client in that moment, so you were, you know, very, very engaged in the session. So active listening was really clear. Hello, we're just waiting for everybody to return from the breakout rooms, and I think we're all here. Excellent, good. I do apologise. We had a big storm here with thunder and lightning and rain and wind, and the internet has not been particularly 100%. I was chucked out there. The internet went off, so I do apologise for the interruption, and to Sarah. So I hope you've had good conversations in the breakout group. And we'll return to our mentor coaching now, and then we'll be able to have our Q&A at the end. So Sarah, we got up to competency 6. We talked about active listening. And your challenge, which I was about to set for you before we were rudely interrupted.
Okay.
What might happen if you asked the client to bottom line, or to summarize their insights
I hadn't thought about doing that. Yeah, it might be actually for a client like this that talks a lot, who's got a lot going on. I think that would have been a really useful activity to enable him to gain some clarity. Yeah, I hadn't thought about doing that. Yeah. Sorry, excuse me. Just the dog.
Asking the client to bottom line, or the dog, lovely. Asking the client to bottom line or to summarize, not only will cut out some of your percentage, not that that's essential, of course, but it also enables them to clarify for themselves. Because actually, sometimes what I hear may not be 100% accurate because I'm bringing other things to the conversation. So as much as I'm active listening, it may be that actually it's even more beneficial to ask them to summarize. And sometimes we do summarize, but it's just another thing we can add to our repertoire. So if I've got a client, for example, who's given me, a really long section, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, right, I think I know what the main things were. What do you feel were the main things around everything that you've just shared? Because
Yeah,
what I take away as the main thing might not be what they do.
I think, but with this particular client, that would have been quite useful. And in fact, that's what he did this morning. He basically came and gave me a summary of everything that he thought.
Fabulous.
Yeah. So yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll think about that.
So these are just additional tools that you can add to your repertoire of things that you can bring into those conversations. And also, there's another way of looking at it. If I'm doing all of the summaries and reflecting everything back, I'm doing a lot of hard work. If they're doing it, they're doing a lot of the work. And actually, we know from experience, if we're doing it ourselves, we're far more likely to learn from it. We're far more likely to absorb it and remember it and consider it and reflect upon it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's another hot tip for you. Excellent. Some things that I loved were the acknowledging. You acknowledged his strengths, you acknowledged his hard work, you acknowledged everything that was going on for him. So that was lovely, and that again builds into that trust and that rapport in the relationship that you had with him. Competency 7, which is the sort of inquiry, the deepening the learning, the figuring out what's going on, the exploration, the clarifying. Again, there were so many questions around that competency area, and I particularly liked kind of the what's worked well before question. I really, there were a couple of questions around what worked well before. What have you already tried? 24 minutes, 27 minutes, 30. Well, what could you do? So that exploration of options, again, real strength, Sarah. You don't always hear coaches asking similar questions, but in different ways, because when we do that, then we go deeper. We're not just on the surface, we're going much, much deeper with our clients. Good stuff. And competency 8, there was quite a lot of competency 8 there around what support might you need, around accountability, what's going to work for you, and then the action points. So there was plenty of competency 8 present as well. So loads of strengths. What's it like to hear?
Honestly, it's so nice. I mean, I really enjoyed the session. And it's nice to know that that there are some strengths and I am hitting some of those competencies, and yeah, it's given me I think that'll give me quite a lot of confidence moving forward. And I don't hear a lot of praise
Oh,
ever in my life for the work I do. I'm a head teacher. Nobody ever says, well done, great job. So yeah, really, really nice to hear. So thank you. But also really nice to have some things that I could perhaps move forward and make those things even better. So the idea of, you know, getting them to summarize, for example, you know, just creating a bigger challenge, if you like, for the client, but also taking some of the work away from me. Yeah, so thank you for those.
You're very, very welcome. You did so well, especially considering this is one of your first sessions. You did really, really well. So well done, Sarah. That, you know, heartfelt, genuinely, authentically, I think you did really well. With your permission, I've got a couple of other things noted down. Might we explore together?
Yeah, yeah, cool.
Okay, lovely. This is a very, very common. I even hear this sometimes in MCC recordings. So, you know, when you go all the way up, ensuring that questions are open. So I
Yeah.
know with your background in education, I don't need to go into open and closed questions because I know that you know that from our prior work together. So it's in the heat of the moment, isn't it?
It is. And I was reflecting on this because I looked at the questions that I'd asked and I was like, oh yeah, that's not open or not open enough. And I sort of tried to think about why I was asking those sorts of questions. And what I need to do is, like, the teacher in me and the mentor and the leader in me needs to take a step back. I need to stop trying to give the client the answer or lead him down a particular path, because I know what he needs to do. And well, I know what I would do, not necessarily what he needs to do, is it? And so I need to shift my mindset as well. I was like, and so I think that that's where some of that comes from. I'm conscious of it. And so what I would like, so yeah, conscious of it, but I think, yeah, in that particular moment, I'm just like, well, isn't it obvious? Isn't this what you need to do? Just give me the right answer to the question. I have to take myself, I'm not in the classroom, you know, I don't need the right answer. I'm in a coaching session and I need to let the client explore.
And I think, you know, as teachers, as trainers, as college professors, as leaders, you know, out of the education sector, often we have some prior knowledge, and it's about the conscious and the unconscious. So you're much more conscious now than you were prior to listening back to that session. A
Yeah.
couple of times, for example, you said, you know, we'll 19 minutes. You said we'll come back to that. So you were managing the process. Whereas in coaching, when we partner, we often say things like, "So we've got this, we've got this, we've got this. What direction do you want to go in?" Yeah.
I think there was a bit of wanting to reassure him that I hadn't forgotten anything, and making sure, because he came with a checklist. I want to know this, 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 and this, and that's how I work as well. Like, he's put this on the table. I need to address it. I need to address this. I need to address this. I need him to, you know, feel like I've listened to him and we've talked about all the things that he's brought to the table. I just need to be more of a coach, less of a mentor.
And there is that competency, the coaching mindset, isn't there? Open, curious, you know, the transparency piece. Yeah. So here's another challenge for you, Sarah. There's a few coming at you this evening. When you step into your role as coach, what do you need to leave behind?
I need to leave behind my own solutions to a particular issue or problem. I need to leave behind this sort of mindset that my way is the best way, and that I have, vastly more experience, so I know best. And I need to leave, and I want him to be enormously successful. So with working with this client, I kind of need to leave it's almost like a fear that he's just going to not go about it the sort of most efficient or right way. It's okay if he does it a different way. It's fine. I need to let go of that. It's letting go of control, really, isn't it?
Okay, that's interesting. Might I invite you to just take a few moments to reflect on that?
Yeah. Mm. Mm. I spend a lot of my time expecting to have the answer to everything in my everyday life. And I spend most of my day answering questions. What should I do about this? What should I do about that? Can I do this? Can I do that? How do you want me to do this? And I just need to let go of that and enjoy not doing that in a coaching session. Like, it's freedom. I don't have to give any answers. It's actually quite liberating, potentially. Oh, how exciting! Oh, freedom. Yeah.
So what will shift then in the way you do things?
When I'm coaching or in my everyday life.
Well,
I mean, it could just stop giving answers. What would you do? Yeah, I think it's potentially linked to the idea of giving a bit of time as well during a coaching session, and not necessarily like filling it. I've got to get through all of this stuff. Just enjoy the process. Be more open to it. Maybe I'll learn something. Maybe I will be inspired by something that's said or an idea. I thought, well, I hadn't thought about approaching it like that. I'm leaving myself open to perhaps a learning opportunity. Yeah.
so a question's just popped into my head, so I'm going to throw it out there to see what you think about it. What is your role as coach then?
I guess it is to, I mean, I should just know this answer just drops off my head, shouldn't I? But like talking about it's to lead them or guide them towards the solutions that they already have in themselves, that best fit them and their way of thinking and their way of doing things, to lead to the best outcomes for them. It's not about me and how I would do things.
Interesting use of the verbs there, to lead and to guide.
Yeah. I guess it's a way of putting it. It's to kind of open up a world of possibilities to them by posing these questions and making them think around what a particular issue is, and using the tools, the knowledge, experience that they have, just opening up those possibilities, sort of unlocking them, if you like, maybe more rather than guiding and leading. I'm just asking questions.
And all the other things.
May
May I offer you a word?
It would be easy, wouldn't it?
But when people, may I offer how I describe it? So this morning I had an initial coaching session with a new client, and I described it like I'm the expert in the process of facilitating the conversation.
Yeah.
But I'm not an expert in his context. And actually, Sarah, sometimes, you know, just from experience, sometimes it's more difficult to coach people in your own sector where you have 20 plus years experience and you are an experienced leader.
I think it's also, what I was about to say was it's a challenge to coach somebody that I work so closely with as well, because I know exactly what he does on a day-to-day basis. And that's an advantage in some ways. You know, but it is also a challenge to take a step back. Yeah. So I need to be mindful of that when I'm coaching. Yeah.
It's interesting because actually, I don't know if you'll believe me or not, but one of my notes, it actually says step back. I've literally written that as a potential development area. So it's interesting that you said that vocabulary, but I'd actually completely independently written it down. Yeah, that's really interesting. One final thing. So because that was a really strong coaching session for a new coach, I'm going to offer something that for a new coach, maybe I wouldn't straight away if we were mentoring. And I think you might be ready.
Okay.
So when we think about coaching, and actually this is in the PCC markers, that's for those that are more familiar with the competencies and the markers and the bars and everything else. We have an emphasis on the what, and we have an emphasis on the who. So they appear multiple times in the PCC markers. I can share those with you after the session if that might be helpful. The what, it's very much what Matt, your coachee, brought to the session. What needs to be done? What does he need to do? What's on the checklist? What steps does he need to take? And all of that is extremely valuable. I'm not suggesting that it isn't. And as I was listening, I was hearing myself, my internal voice, think, who does Matt need to be?
Okay.
So we've got the what, but when we start to think about the who, that's where we go usually where we go significantly deeper in those dives. What are your thoughts around that observation?
What's really interesting is that when he came to speak to me this morning to tell me about his reflections over the weekend, it kind of links to that, because he was saying that he had started to think about the things that we talked about, and then had been thinking about how some of those issues, etc., play out in his personal life and really related to who he is. So it's like he started to question it as well, which is interesting. As far as, yeah, like I think that would be a bit of a challenge for me at the moment to sort of start diving into that. I think I'm comfortable with what you need to do, what you're going to do to get there, and, you know, who you're going to be accountable, what support you need. I think I'm okay with that. I think diving deeper would be a bit more of a challenge for me at the minute. I don't feel confident enough, perhaps, to go that far. But yeah, something to think about for the future, definitely.
What would give you more confidence to throw those types of questions out there to your clients?
I think if I had a few more sessions with Matt, I could, because he's so open to it. He will talk and talk and talk. And I think that he'd be really excited about it if I was like, I properly made him think. So I think it's the benefit of experience, perhaps, you know, trying out a few of those things. I don't want to say experimenting or playing, but, you know, but throwing some challenges his way. I think if I was to do that with someone I felt very comfortable with, then that will build my confidence in those areas. So Yeah, maybe I will be having more sessions with him, so that's something I could think about for the future. Yeah.
May I also suggest, when you're doing your coach training, because I know you're in on the CoachME level 2, when you're listening to recorded coaching sessions, when you're observing your peers in their coaching sessions, maybe look out for those questions if they arise. And if not, maybe look out for opportunities where the coach may have gone down that road.
Okay. So what sort of things would I be looking for?
It might be looking for questions like, well, who do you need to be?
Okay. Just as simple as that.
Simple as that.
Yeah. Okay.
And if those questions aren't there, what might you have asked around the who rather than the what?
Okay.
That was a lot, Sarah. We've gone quite deep there. We've gone to specifics like, ask open questions, try to keep them one at a time, like some basic, fundamentals, to much deeper, what do you need to leave behind? And then some real challenges there for you. So that was your first mentor coaching session. What was that like for you?
Well, yeah, it was challenging. Like, it did challenge my thinking, but I feel actually much more confident. I was quite worried about going into this process, like what is going to happen. But actually, I feel quite confident. I'm not surprised. I mean, it's great to hear all the really good stuff. Brilliant, love that. As I said, it doesn't happen very often. But it was really reassuring to know the things that I had got written on my list here of areas for development were in line with what you told me. So I feel like I've got a fairly good understanding of where I'm at and what I need to work on. So yeah, really reassuring. Yeah.
Who or what might help you with those sort of growth edges?
I need to do some more coaching for sure. I need to record those sessions and, listen back, look at some of the feedback here. How does it relate to that? Look at the competencies. What am I missing? What am I hitting? And not just, but also when I'm working with or being coached as well. Perhaps listen to some of those recordings if, and look at what other coaches are doing. And then, look at other sessions, recorded sessions online and training materials that have been shared and whatnot. And yeah, look out for some of those things. What can I learn from those? But genuinely, I mean, like, how anxious I was about recording a session and then sharing it with everybody. It's actually been a really, really valuable experience. So thank you for that. It's been great.
My pleasure. My pleasure to be able to facilitate that learning for you. And I'm curious, what have you learnt about yourself as a coach today? Or what might you have learnt about yourself as a coach today?
That, I mean, I don't know. They're not terrible. There are some good bits in there. There were some areas for development. It was great to know somebody who got something out of the session and wanted to come back to me and talk about it. Yeah, that I'm kind of along the right track, really. Still learning, very early stages, but excited to see where this leads to. Yeah.
Well done, Sarah. And thanks again so much for giving your vulnerability and being so open and honest in the session. Is there anything you feel you'd like to say or share just before we bring this section to a close and go into our Q&A?
No, just thank you, really. That was an amazing opportunity, and thank you for the mentoring, which is a great insight into mentoring itself, but also has given me some points for further development. So yeah, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Okay, you can relax, Sarah, and I'll invite people to come back. Taking off the, can you take off the spotlight, Sarah, there? You're right, slap bang in the middle. Right, we've got from Massimo in Italy. Thanks, Sarah and Caroline. Inspiring, great demo. I have to go. Ciao. Sabrine, Sarah, great job. Thank you both for this great learning opportunity. Lovely. Okay. For the rest of us, do you have any particular questions you'd like to ask me around the mentor coaching? Or have you got anything you'd like to share with Sarah around what she's been so kind enough to share with us for this learning opportunity?
May I, Caroline?
Please do.
Thank you so much, Caroline. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much for being so brave, so courageous, for bringing up this session and just giving us an opportunity to participate in the process and to watch the process. That was really very valuable. And I would say that being a mentor coach myself, I can really agree with everything Caroline mentioned as appreciation points. I feel like there is so much potential in how you coach, and especially considering that this is just you're doing the first steps. That's amazing. As if I may, as just a slight encouragement, and Caroline actually dwelled on that already. I think your coaching will immensely grow and mature as soon as you start seeing your client as a real partner. Because sometimes, probably because of the age difference, I don't know, because I don't know the subordinate things, anything. I don't know anything about that guy, but at times it did feel that you wanted to help him too much in how he moved forward in the session. So just to be a little bit more neutral and to be more of a partner than a mentor. And you know that yourself, you mentioned that already. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's also really interesting. Ina was very kind to invite me to one of her coach training sessions to speak about the topic of what I needed to leave behind when I became a coach. Because my background is also in education. I think, people that know me on the call will know that. And so I empathized completely with what you were saying, Sarah. And Ina obviously has heard me speak about that, haven't you, Ina, to your group of trainee coaches. So it is a significant factor when we're coming from that space of knowing. We know what the objectives are. We know where people need to go. We know what they need to do to get there. But stepping back from that, for me, was a really big step, and it was a process. It didn't just come easily. It was something that I had to very consciously think about. So I totally empathized with where you were with that. And to echo what Ina said, this is one of your first recorded coaching sessions. You did a brilliant job. Okay, let's hear from somebody else. Any other comments for Sarah or myself? Linda. Linda's over in Canada.
Yes, I am, and I'm waking up. I mean, it's now, it might be late for people, but I'm a late night sleeper and or go to bed late and get up. Well, not late. Anyway, enough of that. You can see. So Sarah and Claire, thank you so much for this, and particularly Sarah, echoing what Ina has just said about your openness and generosity and letting us into your space with your experience. Really, really, I'm grateful for that. There's so many things that have already been said. And what I would like to add is this this feeling of spaciousness that you created for your client. And if we're speaking about competencies, I think it touches on every competency, particularly maybe number four, but anyway, it's that generosity of space that you enabled for your client to show up who they are, getting to the who, and trying to figure that out. So there was a lot of that, and let them speak uninterrupted, and figure it out, processing it. So that's a real strength that I just like to share with you, that I witnessed, and I never for the moment got the sense. I listened to the recording and followed along with the transcript at the same time, and I never got the sense that your presence had broken at any time. Sometimes that happens when we may have clients who speak, think out loud, process out loud, and I never got the sense that you broke that presence. So again, that was the sense I got when I listened to it. So a wonderful job there.
Thank you so much, Linda. Sarah, I hope you're noting all of these positives.
I am, yes. It's giving me, I see the big smile on my face. Thank you.
Excellent. Laura had to leave, but she has put in the chat. Thank you to Sarah. This has been my first mentor coaching session, and it really helped me to better see the differences between coaching and mentoring and supervision. And thank you, Sarah, for your super journey, super coach. Very nice. Any other questions about the process of mentor coaching, or what that involves, or any of the decisions that I made, or my style of mentor coaching, or anything for Sarah, of course. Khaled.
And I'm talking now from, if I would have been Sarah, I would have had one question you have not answered.
Oh, what's that, Khaled?
Would that have passed a ACC level or PCC level? Where am I at the moment?
I think that's a very good question. And Sarah, you didn't ask that question. I would be comfortable saying that would pass at an ACC level, for sure. Mm-hmm. And remembering at ACC, we don't need to be perfect. There was evidence of partnering, although there was some evidence of leading as well. There were lots of open questions, and there were a few closed questions as well. There were times when Sarah asked one question, but then other times when she stacked them a little bit. But there was the goal, there was partnering, there was competency 6, 7, and 8 there. So I think there was enough there to elicit an ACC pass. For PCC, that's where the areas for development that we discussed came in, especially the what and the who. Yeah, making sure that we ask one question at a time, ensuring the questions are open, ensuring that we're not leading, ensuring that the client is deciding the direction of the session. Those sorts of things lend themselves more to PCC level.
The question hadn't even occurred to me, because I'm so early on my coaching. I'm so I'm not very far down the road. I'm so early on this journey that hadn't even occurred to me. So that's really reassuring. Thank you. Thank you for that question.
Good question. Anything else from our other participants? If you don't want to speak, or you're still in your pajamas, or you're just getting into your pajamas, depending on where you are in the world, and you'd like to ask a question, please feel free to pop it in the chat.
I would just love to thank you very much, Caroline. It's a beautiful session, the usual, and I wish you all the best all the time.
Thank you, Gardo. It's lovely to see you. You're over in Egypt, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm still there. And whenever you visit again, let us meet.
I absolutely will, Garda. Very nice to hear from you, and thank you for coming this evening. Linda.
Caroline, I had this question that you asked about the role of coach. And what do you have to leave behind? I thought that was
Thank you, my dear. Thank you.
wonderful, a wonderful question that really speaks to how we prepare for sessions in getting ready. So thank you for that.
And it's also, you know, when we think about competency one, what is and is not on offer? Like, where is the distinction between coaching, mentoring, training, and other form, you know, teaching, etc., and other forms of delivery? So yeah, it's I think, and also when I deliver coach training, that is a question that I ask. You know, I think it's an intrinsic question. If we know ourselves, then we're able to communicate that to our clients. And we need to be really clear about how we communicate what we're offering and what we're not offering. So yeah, I think that's it's a quite a philosophical question, but an important one to start to consider. Yeah. Myrna has written, thank you for the beneficial session. I'd love to hear it more and more. Thank you, Myrna. You're very welcome next time.
Thank you very much. It's so interesting. And I love the way, like, when you give her the space to show her coaching way, you didn't push on her how to be a perfect coach. I like that. Because in coaching, it's not in one day. Coaching is not a one day skill. We learn it. We need to practice it and discover. It's something to dig and find out how treasures are there in the humans' lives, and how to push them forward, and how to get rid of stuff like hindered our help to the client. Like, we couldn't help him because we had this. So I love your question when you ask her what you're gonna leave behind. It's so much, like, it's a very, like, focused question, and I like it so much. Thank you. I'd love to hear this session again and again. Thank you.
Myrna, it's an interesting one, and it's twofold. What do I need to leave behind to be the best coach I can for this client in this session?
Yeah.
But then also, in a wider sense, what do I need to leave behind from my prior professional career in order to be the best coach that I can be? So we've got for the focus on the client, and we've got the focus on ourselves as well with the leaving behind aspect. Yeah.
Yes. So interesting. It could be a seminar. It could be a title.
Well, yeah. And that's what when I visited Inna in her coach training group, that was the topic, wasn't it, Inna?
Yeah.
Thank you, Myrna.
Thank you.
It is a very interesting one. We're leaving our expert stance behind and becoming an expert in the process rather than an expert in the client and their context. Yeah. Wafa, I can see you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I would like also to thank you and Sarah for the great session. I also love the way that you mentor it. It was really very, very interesting, and I didn't feel really that you are guiding or giving advices. It's more informative way to learn. And yeah, I really appreciate that. I have one question. You mentioned that one of her strengths that she's knowing that she's recording the session. And my question, if that's correctly said, now I'm not sure, but this is the way I understand it. How could it be different when a coach is knowing that he's or she's recording the session, and when to lose? Like, yeah, personally, I have this feeling sometimes because it's recording, I feel that I'm under the control of the competencies and all, yeah, the criteria that we should meet. So how could we be more free with or in peace recording the sessions, if
Yeah,
this is correctly said?
No, I hear you, Wafa, and certainly when I started coaching, there was the fear. As soon as the record button was pressed, there was the fear within me. Absolutely. So I understand where you're coming from. There are two things that you said. Firstly, if we are recording for a performance evaluation, then that little piece that Sarah did at the beginning around, you know, permission to record, and if you don't want this shared, then we'll delete it straight away. That's a nice kind of nod to competency one. although competency 1 and 2 are evaluated more in the ICF credential exam than in the performance evaluation. That's, you know, ICF acknowledge that, and so we don't need to worry too much around that. Secondly, how do we get rid of the fear when we're recording? My best advice that I can give to you is record as much as possible, because the more you record, the less you'll be conscious that you're recording, and it will just become easy. It will become easy because you're not thinking about the recording. You just forget that it's being recorded and you focus on your client. So that's what helped me. And of course, seeking permission from the client, of course, whenever I recorded anything. But for me, that helped me get over the fear, because I wasn't preoccupied with the fact that, you know, might I be able to use this performance evaluation? Is this going to be good enough? I just left all that behind, and I was just with the client in the moment. From our other coaches, I know we've got lots of experienced coaches here. Are there any other pieces of advice you could give Wafa around doing those dreaded recordings? Ina?
Yeah, I would love to suggest, Wafa, that sometimes it helps if you consider the recording as just a really good practice to keep your presence. Because if you want to develop your presence in the coaching session, there is nothing works better than when you record yourself without, and you know that you're not going to submit that to any performance evaluator. You just do that for yourself. You feel sort of liberated from any control, and then you listen back to the recording, and in this way you just get used to that, to the practice itself. So I suggest that I'm all with Caroline, just do it as much as possible, and then you will really feel relaxed as soon as you start recording for your evaluations.
And also, if you are looking towards credentialing, whether it's ACC, PCC or MCC, it takes the pressure off, because you'll have multiple potential recordings to choose from, rather than this has got to be the one. And then you're under an immense amount of pressure to get that right. You know, I use the term right, but, you know, to call the boxes or include whatever you feel needs to be included. So yeah, Wafa, there's a challenge for you this evening. Get recording. And honestly, for me, and I know that Sarah echoed this as well, I learned so much from listening to myself coach, because I could hear things that I wasn't very happy with. And I heard other things which I allowed myself to think, well, that was okay. I'll say that, I'll use that again, you know. And also, if you can, and certainly when I deliver mentor coaching, as those on the call will know that have been mentored by me, I always provide my own recordings or from my library of recordings, so that people in mentor coaching sessions, we get to discuss your recording, but we also get to discuss one of my recordings, so that you're hearing multiple ways of coaching. And Sarah, you've done that more recently with some of my recordings, haven't you? What's been your experience of that?
Yeah, it's been really useful, and so I was able to take little bits. Oh yeah, that's a really good question, or that's useful, that's a good way to start, or whatever. So yeah, it's been very, very useful to listen to other people, because I mean, as I said, I'm not very experienced. I don't really know. I feel like I don't really know what I'm doing. I want to get as much information as possible. But that whole recording myself, yes, it's terrifying. But once I've done it, and I've done it, a couple of times now, yeah, it is very interesting. Learned a lot from it.
There you go, Wafa. So I hope that answered your question. Haytham, thank you so much, Sarah, and hats off for the qualities you showed as a coach and the courage to share a first yet great recording. Thank you for your learning style. Cheers from Cairo. Nice to see you, Haytham. You're welcome. I love Cairo. I was there just a few weeks ago, Haytham. Any other comments or questions from anybody? Judith, well, yes, the recording. Well, I'll check with Sarah. As long as Sarah is happy for the recording to be available, then we'll make that available for everybody that was on the call and those that registered that weren't able to attend. Sometimes in mentor coaching sessions, I drill down to specific competencies and specific competency groups. Other times, like today, we did a sort of general overview of the competencies in different areas because it was Sarah's first one-to-one mentor coaching session. So it depends on what you want from the session as well. Like, for example, if Sarah had said, oh, I don't feel very confident with competency 8, what sorts of things go on there, then we could have just honed in on that. We could have done a general overview of the recording and then honed in on a particular competency group. It might be that the client comes and says, I don't understand competency 3.4 or whatever it might be. And then we can talk about that. So that's why at the beginning of mentor coaching sessions, much like in a coaching session, I inquire with the coach, the client, what is it that you want to get from this session? You know, what are your priorities today? What would you like to come away with? I think when we're mentoring, much like when we're coaching, it's important to inquire what the client needs, the coach in this context. Yeah. I use the program, I know Linda and I have discussed this online before, and it allows me to upload the recordings and map them to the competencies, and it gives me those numbers as well, what percentages people have spoken for. So it's quite an interesting program. If you would like information about that, it's not my program, and I don't get any, you know, I don't get any commission or anything, but it's quite an interesting program to use if you are delivering mentor coaching. And if you are delivering mentor coaching, because I'm sure there are some people watching from that perspective as well as from the coaching perspective, the mentor coaching competencies are available on the ICF website. So if you are delivering mentor coaching, then it's interesting to look at those competencies and behaviors that ICF are looking for in a mentor coach. The CoachME program also offers a professional certificate in mentor coaching if you are looking for some professional development in that area. Right, I think that might be everything for today. So just a short pause. Is there anything from anybody else before we draw our session to a close? I'll take that as a no. Thank you so much for coming to support Sarah today and to observe the session. If you have any questions, please contact Leah. And Oksana said, thank you very much, Sarah and Caroline, for a great mentoring session. Very insightful. And I have many takeaways to ponder. I like that word, ponder. Oksana, thank you. If you have any questions about anything from today, please touch base with Leah and I will contact you as soon as I can. And if you have any questions about any of the CoachME programs, again, Leah or Simon are your people to contact if you'd like any more information. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, or night, depending on where you are in the world, and take care. Lovely to see everybody this evening.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.